repatterning. And I am doing a session today, which we call a group session on the upcoming election. And I've asked one of our fellow practitioners, Sophia, who's coming to us from Brazil, to join us today. We're going to discuss it a little bit, and then we're going to see what do we need to do to really come into resonance with a civilized election. With all the rhetoric going on, with all the attack ads going on, the robocalls, etc., regardless of your personal opinion about the election, I think you, like Sophie and I, might crave for old-fashioned civility here. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to my partner today. And Sophia, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ardis. My name is Sophia Avramidis. I'm currently living in Brazil. And, well, we've just had an election, and it certainly wasn't as civilized as it could have been. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this repatterning for the election in the US.
Absolutely. So for those of you joining us today who may not be familiar with resonance repatterning, it's a beautiful process created by Chloe Faith Wordsworth, who resides in Scottsdale, Arizona, where I also live. And it helps us identify what we want to change and then get our energy moving within us to support those changes. Conversely, it helps us identify what we would like to create that we're not experiencing and marshal our energy to move us in the direction of something new. So today, the newness is going to be this concept of civility. And I want to start, Sophia, I just want to play a little bit here with some quotes that I found. Google is a great ally here when we need it. And I want you to get an idea of who might have been saying these words. So these are all politicians. I'll give you one hint, they're former presidents. So the first one is, civility is not a sign of weakness. And sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Anything come to mind from your history? Civility is not a sign of weakness. Who might have said that? You don't have to answer, you can just think about it. I'm going to give you another one from the same president that might hone it down a little bit. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program. For from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. And one more. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error does not become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. So wow. 3 quotes. Who would you guess? No wrong guesses here.
Oh, dear. History is not my strong suit.
Well, then let me bail you out. By today's standards, I truly believe this man would be a Republican. By reading through his talks, his policies, etc., I really think in his heart he was a Republican, although he was elected and known forever as a Democrat. He's also a person who, when he lost his life, we lost our innocence. And everything that we took for granted in terms of our security, our safety, our trust in the process, I think went with him when he was assassinated. Those 3 quotes were from John F. Kennedy.
Right.
And one of the things I admired about Kennedy as I've read about him over the years is that his cabinet, with the exception of his brother, were mostly held positions by people that opposed him. Many of them were actually his enemies that disliked him tremendously. And that's quite uncommon anymore. And I think probably traditionally it was pretty uncommon to fill your cabinet with people that had very contradictory opinions to you. Yet he did it. And when he would be asked repeatedly why, He said, I want the smartest, most capable people in the whole world, in the whole United States, to be guiding me. So what happened to that open-minded Democrat, but really very Republican in his heart and in his policies in many ways, especially economic policies? What happened to that level of civility? I mean, could you imagine any current administration, even going back 5, 6 administrations ago, that would have surrounded himself with people that strongly disagreed with his policies?
Not really, no.
I think a lot of that simply comes from the policies in this country, and I don't know so much the policies in other countries, but the policies of favors. You know, you give me a donation, I give you a favor. I either pass a piece of legislation that you're going to really like, or I'll appoint you to a position. And all politicians across the board are guilty of that. It isn't just one administration that is guilty of that. And I think for us right now, there is a weariness, a real weariness. And so that first event I talked about when he was assassinated in 1963, I really think up until then, even though Eisenhower was very strong in many of his opinions and kind of grandfatherly in his approach to being president, he said this. Let me get a quote from him because I gathered several. Some politicians some years ago said that bad officials are elected by good voters who do not vote. If a political party doesn't have its foundation in the determination to advance a cause that is right and moral, then it's not a political party. It's merely a conspiracy to seize power. Okay, so that came from a general and a Republican president. So I think times changed. Innocence was lost when that horrific thing happened. And then the second shock that solidified it was 9/11. And I think since then, we've been running on a lot of fear. And I think the people that are drawn to politics are also driven by this fear. Fear they won't get elected if they do things in a civil way. Fear that if they get elected, they won't get reelected unless they go into attack. And attack is always based on fear, in my opinion. A wounded animal will attack you because they're afraid in their weakened state that you're going to harm them. So there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of confusion. And with so many attack ads, I think a lot of us don't even know who we're going to vote for. And I think that all the billions of dollars spent on an election, I think oftentimes people go into the voting booth and either vote a straight ticket that they feel more comfortable with by party line, or they might pick the person who was least likely to pay for an attack ad against their opponent, or they bought into the attack ad and they'll go that way. So you really wonder what we end up with, obviously, is those that show up and those that care enough to vote. But what we really end up with, is it what we really want? So my hope today is that you and I can just untangle this a little bit. I don't have any answers. But I thought it would be fun just to see in terms of our process, how can you and I, representing the bigger you and I, shift our energy so we really move forward in a way that is civilized, that is kind, that is respectful. You and I can have very different opinions, but we're not enemies because we have different opinions. Right. And I don't know when that all started, but I really would like to withdraw any of my energy from continuing it. I know friendships that have been lost because of fierce differences in opinions, especially in the last, say, decade, and families that have been fragmented because of it. And we all, fight, at least on some level, even if it's just energetic, we fight for democracy, we fight for liberty. You look at the news reports of people in Afghanistan and what they go through just to be able to vote and put their lives in harm's way to cast their vote. The politicians that bravely stand forward as candidates, knowing there's a very good possibility they're going to be assassinated for it. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of courage out there as well as a tremendous amount of fear. So I think it would be good to look at that. And what I would like to do, Sophia, if you're okay, is really keep our slant very positive here. Pardon the cough drop. Too much talking today. And really work from the point of what are our intentions? What are the intentions here? We know what the problems are. They've been talked and talked and talked. We don't need those identified anymore. But let's just go to what do we want instead? So what is your intention representing? And I'll certainly contribute to it as well, so you don't have to carry it all on your shoulders. But what is your intention around this conversation of bringing civility back into the political arena? And you would be speaking as you, and those that match your frequency or your words will come into alignment.
Okay. My intention is, okay, let's start from, I respect the opinions of others. I acknowledge that we have different priorities. And I maintain my connection to the field and to unconditional love. Or the field of unconditional love.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, and I'm going to add to that I stay open and connected, because you did put connection as well. I stay open and connected when listening to opinions that are different than mine, and allow myself to change my mind. Okay, so representing the greater energy field here. These are all going to be checked in the general field unless I find they're not, and then I'll say that out loud. Say, I respect the opinions of others.
I respect the opinions of others.
I acknowledge that we have different priorities.
I acknowledge that we have different priorities.
And I maintain my connection to the field of unconditional love.
And I maintain my connection to the field of unconditional love.
I stay open and connected.
I stay open and connected.
To my heart.
To my heart.
When listening.
When listening.
To the opinions that are different than mine.
To opinions that are different than mine.
And I allow myself to change my mind.
And I allow myself to change my mind.
And right now, we are not matching that energy. So we need to look at the feelings. So what is the emotion this would give you, Sophia, if we were to really come into alignment with that statement? How would it feel?
Safe.
Safe. And if you felt safe, what other emotion would come along with safety? I'm going to say, and I'm at peace.
Yes, it is about.
Because there's been a lack of peace lately with all that's going on. Say, I feel safe and I am at peace.
I feel safe and I am at peace.
Mm-hmm. And unconsciously, we do not match the frequency of that. All right. So underneath whatever we're lacking in our life is an unmet need from our childhood that is asking to be resolved. And the category that we are checking for is a need for purpose, meaning, spiritual happiness as well. And I have a list here that I'm checking from. And the one we need is this one. Say, I am receptive.
I am receptive.
To God's grace.
To God's grace.
And we are off to that. And much of the divisiveness that I'm hearing in this political arena is around the idea of religion and God, and some people having low or no tolerance for people that have different faiths or different beliefs. And it makes me think of the mushroom story. Well, this is a story that I've told before, so pardon me, Sophia, if you've heard it before, but it's, I think, worth repeating on this video. There's a phenomena that I saw a little documentary on, and it was a National Geographic, and it's a huge mushroom, and it can go tens of thousands of acres in size. And when you're walking along where this mushroom is, all you see are little pop-ups, little pieces of the mushroom, all looking slightly different, some larger, some smaller, but underneath they're all connected to this one gigantic mushroom. And as you're walking on the mushroom, you don't see the connection because you don't actually see the massive size of the mushroom. You just see the little pieces that choose to break through and make their appearance. And in many ways, that's how I see us. We are that giant mushroom, whether we're in Brazil or in Arizona or Canada or anywhere in this wonderful world that we share. We are alive. And because we are alive, we are a pulsating, vibrating field of frequencies. That's what all living things are, whether it's a human living thing, my little dog on the couch, your four-legged little kitty cat running around your house, or any other animal species or plant species. We're all connected because we're all pulsating fields of frequency, and we cannot untangle ourselves from that unified field. So that visual of that mushroom really speaks to me, because some pop-ups would define themselves as red state. Some pop-ups would say, no, I'm blue state. Some would say, I'm a diehard Republican. Some would say, no, I'm a Democrat. Some would say, I'm independent. Someone would say, I'm a Jefferson. What is the term? Jeffersonian. There's an in between a Democrat and Republican. I can't think of what it is right now, but these are labels, right? I'm a Southern, I'm a Northern, I'm an Eastern, I'm a Western. We're all a mushroom. And every pop-up is precious, and every pop-up is connected to that bigger base underneath. So I think of that as we go into this election, that what we're really craving is some guidance. And if we believe we're all connected, then my connection to my version of God should be in harmony with your connection to your version of God and anyone's version of God. It's all our version of it. We've not been able to see this God thing, but we believe, most of us believe in something beyond where we're at and what we're capable of. Okay, so receptive to God's grace. I think it goes back to trust, and I think it goes back to innocence, and I think it goes back to those two major shocks that took our innocence away, and our faith in the goodness of people, and our expectation that people will be civil, that they will do the right thing, that they will come from a value system. And even if their value system is slightly different than mine, I can respect that it's theirs, and they can respect that I have mine. Okay, so we need anything from here. What is the positive thought or image that comes to mind for you when you hear that statement of respecting the opinions of others and acknowledging that you may have different priorities, but as long as you stay connected to that field of everything, then you're going to be open from your heart to other ideas and possibly changing your mind about things. So when you hear that, what is the optimistic thought or image that comes to mind?
Communities working together for the good of all.
Would you repeat that? You cut out a little bit. Communities working together
For the good of everyone.
for the
To
good of all.
support everyone. And politicians crossing the aisle, as it were, working in harmony to pass laws and do the right thing to represent the interest of their constituents, or is that the right word?
Mhm.
So that there's positive, so that the needs of everyone are met.
Mhm. And for me, I get a feeling of reclaiming my innocence and belief in the goodness of all. Because I think people, for the most part, seek public service because they want to be of service. I don't think they set out to seek public service so that they can have power. It may end up that they get power, but I think they begin from that place of innocence. And I would love to get us back to that place once more. So let's check in with our energy, see if we hold any resonance with that. Say communities working together for the good of all.
Communities working together for the good of all.
Supporting everyone.
Supporting everyone.
Seeing politicians crossing the aisle.
Seeing politicians crossing the aisle.
Working in harmony.
Working in harmony.
To pass laws and do the right thing.
To pass laws and do the right thing.
To represent the best interest of their constituents.
To represent the best interests of their constituents.
So the needs of all are met.
So the needs of all are met.
I reclaim my innocence and belief in the goodness of all.
I reclaim my innocence and belief in the goodness of all.
Okay, and right now we don't match the frequency of that. You and I are having the session because we're caught up in the acrimony of politics that we hear all around us, and we're not really hearing or seeing how people are coming together in any viable way. So let's create a statement again now about how we see people turning out. So one of the things that we've been reading about is that some people have confusion. Am I registered? Am I not? Sometimes polling places move from one location to another and people get there and find out they don't know where to go. There's been some accusations of, a conscious effort to stop that, people from having the right to vote. We don't know that to be true, so let's just put that aside. And again, keeping it positive. How do we want to be going into the election process? So we have ancestors who have died for our right to be able to cast this vote. And typically in elections, a very small percentage of people that are qualified actually turn out to vote. And yet there's optimism. There seems to be a lot of optimism right now. In spite of all the lack of civility, we also hear a lot of optimism that younger people who are our future are turning out in record numbers to vote even early, that they're very committed to voting. I saw a statistic online that said in the last midterm election, only about 20% of voters between the ages of 18 and 25 voted. And now already 49.5 have voted. And they expect that number to keep rising. So it looks like this younger generation, whatever their agenda is, I don't know what bullet points are reaching them, but they collectively, in a Gallup poll that I read today, said that they were very put off by the kind of slamming that's being done, one candidate slamming another candidate, and that in no way would encourage their participation, but rather to change that is why they were getting out to vote. So I think the young people are coming online, the kind of people that are out and about in life that have always voted are going to vote, and then people in the margins hopefully will find their way to be able to get their voices heard as well. So coming into the election, what would be a good intention to set for an individual voter going in to cast their vote? I'll start and give you a minute to think about it because I just threw the question out at you. So I do my due diligence and read about each candidate that is running for this midterm election. I ponder their positions and see which ones I can support. I go to my polling place, take my time reviewing candidates and cast my vote in line with my integrity. Would you like to add anything to that?
I am centered and I vote with clarity.
Okay, and I'll just add I support everyone who is eligible to easily cast their votes. Because everybody does have that right and no one should be denied it. Say I do my due diligence.
I do my due diligence.
And read about each candidate.
And read about each candidate.
That is running for this midterm election.
That is running for this midterm election.
I ponder their positions.
Sorry, repeat that.
I ponder their positions.
Ponder their positions.
And see which ones I can support.
And see which ones I can support.
I go to my polling place.
I go to my polling place.
Take my time reviewing the candidates again.
Take my time reviewing the candidates again.
And vote online and vote in line with my integrity.
And vote in line with my integrity.
I'm centered.
I'm centered.
I vote with clarity.
I vote with clarity.
I support everyone who is eligible.
I support everyone who is eligible.
And everyone casts their vote.
And everyone casts their vote.
So there's an unconscious resistance to that. Okay. And we need to look at an inner strength. So what inner quality, mindset, emotion would be most helpful for you representing the greater whole in moving towards an election based on civility? What do we have inside of us that needs to come forward to help that along?
Compassion, integrity, maybe just love.
Good. And we need to add any more. Say, I have compassion, integrity, and love.
I have compassion, integrity, and love.
Again, there's an unconscious block to that. So on a conscious level, our energy wants to go there, but it doesn't have a familiar pathway in the brain to go back to and say, oh, that's what that feels like. To have that, oh yeah, I remember that feeling. So if we don't have the experience stored in the brain, we can't go retrieve it. Okay, that's what that unconscious resistance is about. And then this statement is a really nice one that's written in the book. Say, I am receptive.
I am receptive
To the limitless energy.
To the limitless energy.
That makes all things possible.
That makes all things possible.
Yeah. So we need some optimism, don't we, Sophia? We need to believe that people will vote. They'll vote their conscience. They will stay in their integrity. They'll do the best they can. And that's all we can ask. That's all we can ask. And then whoever is in office does the best they can. As a bottom line, it isn't one person that does anything. You know, it's a collective group of people making decisions. And it's really important that we hold on to our principles, that we stay connected to our heart, and then we elect people, and then don't re-elect people that aren't following that. I mean, we as a country have a conscience. We know right from wrong, and it's time we do what's right. And that will change from person to person. Then the majority of rightness decides the opinion that leads to the person getting elected. Okay. So let's see where else we can go for some help here in moving whatever stuck energy is in the collective field. So we need to do anything from the repatterning section. We need to look at disrupted energy in our chakras. So chakras are energy centers. And there's 7 major ones that we often refer to, kind of top of the head, middle of the brow, throat, heart, belly area, pelvic area, and the base of our spine. And they're spinning wheels is what the word chakra means. And when a wheel spins, energy flows out of the body, mixes with the other energy that's here, and then it's attracted back in to replenish and revive that energy center to only turn around and go back out. So it's a pulsation. And I have a little ball here that I like to use. It kind of reflects it. So here's the energy centers. The energy expands and radiates out, mixes in with all the other energy that's out there, and then it comes by the energy of the chakra pulling it back in to be recharged and revitalized, only to pulsate out again and in. So just like our heart pulses and our lungs pulse, so do our chakra energy centers have this pulsation. And the problem that we're looking at right now that's underneath the statements we've been gathering is there's some stuck energy. So it either means the energy is flowing out and then it's getting locked out here, so it can't find its way back home, or it comes back home just fine, and then it gets locked inside of us and it can no longer radiate out. So whether we're blocked inside or outside, a block is a block. And when we feel that block, we either feel a lot of pressure or we feel a lot of lethargy. And I actually think we're getting a little bit of both in this midterm election. There are people that are feeling so pressured, they're just blasting their voices and their actions outward against a perceived enemy. The enemy being anyone that doesn't think the way I do. That would be an explosion of that energy blocked inside, trying to get out, to get discharged. And then on the other side, we've got the people whose energy is out here, but they're so weary of nothing ever happening the way they're expecting it to. They're disappointed. They felt let down. And so they kind of checked out. So their energy is just hanging out here, and they feel almost like they're homeless in terms of having energy available to them. So these are the two extremes that I'm really seeing. This pressure cooker blaring out in can be violent actions, or the energy stuck outside and the person is just depleted and feels hopeless and helpless to do anything to bring about a change. Okay? So we're going to look at that disrupted energy, Sophia, from the point of view that we've been discussing this, what we're perceiving as a lack of civility in our political midterm elections coming up, that we acknowledge has been in place for quite some time and just seems to have hit its peak of really feeling off. I mean, we've noticed it before, but I don't think we've noticed it quite as intensely as we're noticing it right now. So we're going to look where that energy is stuck like this and can no longer radiate out. So that's our first category. So it's stuck. I'm checking which chakra. So it's at the base of the spine, which is about security and feeling safe. It's there, yes. And it's here. I'm checking. Say, I am unable to manifest anything I want.
To manifest anything I want.
Right. So, Sophia, let me ask you a question. If you're this person and the energy's stuck in your earth chakra and you feel that you can't manifest anything you want, what might you do?
Punch someone.
Punch someone. You got it. Exactly. I think there's some punching going on. Good. All right. And now we're going to see which one of those 7 chakras is stuck out here and can't relax and come back in. So it's the earth, no. It's the water, it's the fire, and it's this one, it's this one, it's this one, it's this. Say, all right, just got to get to my notes. Say, my thinking is confused.
My thinking is confused.
I am judgmental.
I am judgmental.
And critical.
And critical.
Yeah, and we're on for that. So I want to punch someone the first time. This person is just going, I'm confused, and probably judgmental about themselves, that they're not trying to do something to make things better, and then probably passively critical and judgmental of all these people around them. Okay. Whereas if it's stuck inside, you know the person's going to explode in a way that is hard to miss. This one can be easily missed. This one can be more subtle. And that person with that stuck energy might move into more manipulating behavior, but very passively. Okay. So you don't know what's coming at you, kind of thing. All right. So we need to look at the triad. No. So let's see if there's a shock. It's funny because I was thinking about this session this morning, and I came up with that idea that there's been two major shocks in this country, at least in this last decade, the last century coming into this century. And the first was Kennedy's assassination, followed by 9/11. I mean, a long period apart between the two, but those were two major shocks that I really just feel as a country we're still reeling with. And the loss of innocence from Kennedy's assassination, and the fear, which is the objective of all terrorists, is to instill fear, and they succeeded. And we've never felt safe since. Mm-hmm. So when you have that lack of safety, when you have that fear and that lack of belief that anything can be better, it's real easy to see how polarized a group of people can become.
Yeah.
So someone with strong opinions can pull you one way, or they can pull you the other way. And the majority of people are kind of right here in the center, but can be occasionally sparked to be pulled with these smaller groups that are very clear on their polarity. You know, the people in the middle can be kind of pulled one way or another, which is why they justify, I think, spending billions of dollars on these attack ads rather than, I haven't really heard many commercials, but I have to confess, don't watch a lot of TV just because I don't find it terribly fascinating. But when I do, I really hear, you know, this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and this is what I commit to doing. I rarely hear that. I hear that person, I endorse this ad, meaning I said it's okay to slam my opponent and to accuse my opponent of horrific things. And we may find out after the fact, Sophia, that 90% of those things they were being attacked for, none of these people actually did.
Yeah.
They were taken out of context, but that's how fear works, doesn't it? It's just plant a seed and then make it move fast enough, the process move fast enough that there's no time to fact check it. You know, like you get something on Facebook and you pass it on to everybody without going, what is it? Where do you check it? Spokes? Did I say that right? Where do you check out if something is legitimate or not? There's a place, I think it's called Spokes, where you can find out if indeed this is true, or if you're just passing on information. And that's kind of like the old telephone game. You know, you call your friend and then she calls her friend and gets half of what you said. And yeah, it can be a real mess. So anyway, the shock is what I'm checking for. What is the shock? Say deep emotional wounds to my heart.
Deep emotional wounds to my heart.
Mm-hmm. Well, both of that statement would apply to both of the shocks that I feel as a country we've really suffered. And now the balancing energy for that stuck inside me, have to get out, is this, it's this, it's this, it's this. Say my head and heart are aligned.
My head and heart are aligned.
I access both my high intelligence.
I access both my high intelligence.
And my sense of compassion.
And my sense of compassion.
Mm-hmm. And we are not matching the frequency of that. So that's how we're going to balance that feeling of pressure building up inside of us, is to align our head and heart. Okay. And then the coherence needed to help our energy that's hanging out of us and leaving us feeling very confused and a little passive aggressive is to remember this. Say, I value myself
I value myself.
and what I have to contribute.
What I have to contribute.
Yeah, we are off for that. Good. That should definitely help. So let's see how we can move this energy for you and I and whoever else is interested in sharing this repatterning with us. And remember, if you come to this after the fact, there is no time we made it up. So you can proxy in a year from now and you can still get the benefits from this. So, all right. So for our stuck energy, which I really like to think of a session as identifying where the interference is. So let's just review it. Where is that interference with us? So our intention is around respecting the opinions of others. And by staying open to that field of unconditional love, then we can really listen. We can consider thoughtfully and even change our mind. And that we can feel safe and peaceful and be very receptive to, whatever you think of as God or the divine. But there's a bigger picture here. There's a bigger plan than what we are unfolding day to day. And our vision that communities can work together for really the good of all in that community, and that politicians can cross the aisle, they can work together, they can partner on legislation that's in the best interest of all, so that the needs of the people start getting met more consistently, and that we hold on to the belief in the goodness of all. That we all have a task. And right now our task is to do our due diligence. That means we don't have a good excuse not to know who's running for what. We have no excuse. We are committing ourselves as people of integrity to read, to learn, to discuss calmly what different positions are out there, decide which ones we can support, and then follow through. Take the hour out of our day, and for some people it could be 3 or 4 or more hours out of our day to show up. Because if we don't show up, then we deserve whatever we end up with. And I think we're better than that. I know we're better than that. And the way out is through compassion, through integrity, through love, and that we can manifest our desired outcome. It may take time. It took Gandhi, 60 years to hold that India could be free of British rule nonviolently, and walking around dressed what people would describe as in a diaper, and changed the world. He changed the world. Mother Teresa, who said no human being should die alone, suffering. And she would go to the gutters of Calcutta, and she would take these dying people home, bathe them, feed them, love them into their transition so that they never had to die alone. We could go on and on with examples of people who have changed the world. We have a chance to do that. Every time there's an election, we have a chance. It may not go the way we like it, but at least if we participated, we know we tried. And that's all we can do, is to do our best, to get clarity in our thinking, to heal these deep emotional wounds and shocks to our heart, to align our head and heart together. So we use our intelligence, our thinking process, but we stay connected to our compassion. And that we know that we are of value, as is everyone, and that we all have something we can contribute. So that's our focus. Any interference with those goals is what we are looking at changing. And we can change that in a variety of ways. We could do a visualization. We could do some sounds. We could do color. I have color lenses. I have color lights that we could use. We could get up and do some movements. We could do a particular breathing pattern. We could do some energy contacts on the body. Any or all of those categories are going to move stuck energy. Just move it out of our system so that we are then free to align with these wonderful statements that we've come up with in our session. So I'm just going to check what would be optimal. Looks like we don't need a visualization. Do we need a sound, a color, a movement, a breath? We need an energy contact. So we're going to make a contact somewhere on our body. And we're actually going to pull our fingers. Well, that's very appropriate because we've been working on the chakras. And when we talked about how the energy radiates out from these chakra centers and comes back in, one of the key places it comes out of is our fingers and toes. Okay, so what we're going to do is just start with, you're going to do both hands, all 10 fingers. So one at a time. Start, and I like to just get in there and rub, especially the bottom. So the negative pole of things tends to be a good collection spot. And this thumb relates to the ether center, which is in the throat. So it opens up our voice. And it's aligned with our integrity. And just pull as well. And then do the other thumb. Just get down. Right side, left side means something, not to get too lecturing here, but the right side is our ability to go into action, and our left side is to receive. Then we're going to do our second finger, index finger, which connects to the heart area. So good for stiff shoulders, by the way, is to work on that index finger, pointer finger, and you're looking for tenderness because stuck energy hurts. So when you're pressing in, if you have a little pain, you know it's stuck in that part of you. So then we would go to the opposite hand and work on the opposite index finger. There's no order here. You can do this. You know, it's funny, a lot of the exercises that I teach are really, really simple like this. And out of all the ones I taught, this is the one my mom always liked the most because she could sit in her recliner, watch her soap operas, and pull on her fingers. And then she'd call me and say, Artis, I feel so much better when I do this. So the middle finger is your belly. It's your solar plexus area. So we're opening that up when we do this. And what an easy thing to do when you're sitting watching the news or you're riding in a car somewhere. It's easy to do these. These are not hard. The ring finger is now going to relate to your pelvic area. So if you get tightness in your hips or some pelvic pain of some sort, remember the ring finger and work it. Look for tenderness. And as you're doing it, you're pulling out the blocked energy and you're allowing the system to radiate that energy out your fingers and circulate it all around. And then the final finger is a pinky. That's your earth center. That's just the base of your spine. When you have tenderness here, it's usually because you're not feeling very safe. And that was actually one of the statements that came up for us as wanting to feel safe. So maybe some tenderness in that earth, and then do the opposite finger. This is one also, Sophia, I know you have 2 little children. This would be a really good one for you if you haven't already to teach them. And just to have them just at night as they're dropping off to sleep, just pick a finger, any finger that feels like it needs a little support, and just teach them how to work the finger. Pull that energy out. And I like to end it with just pulling each of those fingers. I always lose my rings when I do this. And pulling that black energy out. And then shake those hands out a little bit. So we are once again doing this. Pulsing out, mixing in the energy, coming home, pulsing out, mixing in the energy, coming home. And I love this ball because of what I just played with, but also the colors. Each chakra color is represented in this ball, which makes it a fun little toy to have. So, Sophia, let's just finish up the session. We're not going to say every statement. I'm just going to pick a couple that will stand as what we call a proxy or representing the others, okay? And the first proxy statement that represents, just getting to my page, I respect the opinions of others.
I respect the opinions of others.
I acknowledge that we have different priorities.
I acknowledge that we have different priorities.
And I maintain my connection to the field of unconditional love.
And I maintain my connection to the field of unconditional love.
I stay open and connected to my heart.
I stay open and connected to my heart.
When listening to opinions that are different than mine.
When listening to opinions that are different than mine.
And I allow myself to change my mind.
And I allow myself to change my mind.
And we're matching that frequency. I feel safe and I am at peace.
I feel safe and I am at peace.
And we're matching that frequency. I have compassion, integrity, and love.
I have compassion, integrity, and love.
My head and heart are aligned.
My head and heart are aligned.
I access both my high intelligence and my sense of compassion.
I access both my high intelligence and my sense of compassion.
I value myself and what I have to contribute.
I value myself and what I have to contribute.
And we are resonating with that. Excellent. Good. So this was a World Peace Hologram, something that the Repatterning Practitioners Association that Sophia and I are both members of, we do one about every month, sometimes more frequently if the world is crashing around us a little bit. We come together and do our part because we are a part of that mushroom. And we're the little pieces popping up saying, I really want to see things better. I really want things to change. And I'm willing to put some effort into making that happen. So World Peace Holograms are a beautiful way to tap into the universal field that we all live in and we all thrive in or not, depending on what our resonance is. So thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Sophia, for playing with me and being my client as we look at how to bring more civility to this midterm election. And as I tell my students, when something is wrong, it's me, it's always me. So there's something going on in me that is matching what I perceive as wrong outside of me. So trying to change what's outside of me is an enormous task that usually ends in failure. So looking inside and saying, well, what can I do to change the signal I'm sending out, to change the energy of what I'm resonating with so that I make a positive contribution to the whole. And that's what we do when we do these World Peace Holograms. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.